The city was waking up slowly. The streets were quiet, except for the occasional rumble of early buses and the soft chatter of neighbors heading to work. On a small corner near a busy market, a man pushed his food cart along the cobblestone street. The cart was old, painted in a faded green, and the wheels creaked with every movement. Yet it was his pride and his livelihood. He had been running the cart for many years, selling breakfast to workers, students, and anyone who passed by early in the morning. The smells of frying bread and sizzling vegetables filled the air, attracting a few sleepy customers. The man had a routine. He would arrive at dawn, prepare his ingredients carefully, and serve everyone with a polite nod and a small smile. Life had not been easy for him. He had lost his family years ago and had no one to count on, but the little food cart gave him purpose. It was more than just a job. It was his way of surviving and contributing something to the world, however small it might be, as he arranged his utensils and pans. He noticed a small figure lurking near the shadows of a nearby building. It was a boy no older than 8 or 9, wearing clothes that were torn and stained. The boy's hair was messy and his small hands were clutching an empty tin cup. He seemed hungry enough to watch every move the man made. The man's heart clenched. He had seen many children wandering the streets begging for scraps, but there was something different about this boy. His eyes held a mix of sadness and determination that tugged at the man's conscience. The boy's presence did not surprise him. The neighborhood had its share of orphans and children abandoned by fate. Some days, he had given a little food to those who asked politely, a piece of bread or a warm pancake, and seen them scurry away with shy gratitude. But he had never felt a connection like this before. Something about the boy made him pause. He placed a small plate of food near the cart and whispered softly, "Here, eat." The boy hesitated, as if not trusting anyone. Slowly he stepped forward, his eyes wide with wonder and caution. He picked up the plate with trembling hands and took a small bite. The man watched quietly, letting the boy eat without interruption. There was no rush. No one else had come by yet. The city was still yawning, and in that quiet moment, the cart and the small boy seemed to exist in a world of their own. Days turned into weeks, and the boy began to appear every morning. He would stand at the edge of the street, waiting for the man to set up the cart. Sometimes he brought nothing, only himself, and sat quietly, eating whatever the man offered. Sometimes he would bring a small coin he had found somewhere, holding it out shyly as if he wanted to pay. The man would shake his head gently, refusing the coin, and tell him, "Keep it. Buy something for yourself, if you can." The boy's eyes would light up, and he would tuck the coin carefully into his pocket, promising silently to use it wisely. The man had no family, but he began to feel a sense of responsibility for the boy. He did not know the child's name at first. He asked, but the boy would only shake his head. Words seemed heavy for him, or perhaps he had been taught not to speak to strangers. So, the man began to call him Little One, a name that was simple and caring. And the boy accepted it with a shy nod. Life on the streets was harsh. The boy, despite his small frame, carried the weight of the world on his shoulders. He had no home, no parents, and no one to protect him from the dangers of the city. He slept in abandoned buildings or under bridges, avoiding the police and anyone who might send him away. Yet, he always returned to the corner near the food cart every morning, drawn by the kindness of a man who had no obligation to care for him. The man, too, was changing. He had spent years living a quiet, solitary life, focused only on survival. But the boy stirred something inside him he hadn't felt in years, a sense of purpose, a desire to protect and nurture. Each morning, as he prepared the food, he would set aside a little extra, knowing that Little One would arrive. It was no longer just a gesture of charity. It had become a habit, a small ritual that gave meaning to his days. One chilly morning, the man noticed the boy shivering. The winter had arrived suddenly, bringing a biting wind that made the streets empty and cold. He took off his own jacket and draped it over the boy's thin shoulders. The boy looked up at him, eyes wide with surprise and gratitude, and whispered, "Thank you." It was the first time he had spoken. The man felt a lump in his throat. He realized that sometimes words were not necessary to build trust and connection. A simple act of kindness could speak louder than any conversation. Word began to spread slowly. Neighbors and regular customers started noticing the little boy with the old food cart. Some whispered about the man's generosity, and a few even left small donations of food or money, wanting to help. But the man never asked for anything. He refused to see it as charity. He was simply doing what he felt was right. He's feeding a child who had no one else. The boy in turn began to trust the man more each day. He would help clean the pans, sweep the area around the cart, and even carry small bags of groceries when the man returned home after the morning rush. They had formed an unspoken bond, a partnership built on trust, care, and mutual respect. The boy still did not speak much about his past, but the man didn't push. He knew that wounds took time to heal, and patience was the first step. One morning, as the man was frying bread for his first customer, he noticed something unusual. A large envelope had been placed carefully at the edge of the cart. There was no name, no note, only a small mark that looked like it had been drawn by a child. The man frowned, unsure who had left it, and opened it slowly. Inside was a stack of drawings, colorful and messy, yet full of life. Each drawing depicted scenes of happiness. A sunny day, children playing, a man with a food cart, and a small boy standing beside him. The man's eyes watered. He realized that the boy had made these for him, a silent thank you for the care he had received. It was a small gesture, but it meant everything. The man pinned one drawing to the cart, where everyone could see it, feeling a warmth he hadn't felt in years. The boy watched from a distance, shyly smiling, and the man waved at him. As weeks passed, the bond between them grew stronger. The man began to think about the boy's future. He knew that feeding him each morning was not enough. The child needed more shelter, education, and the chance to live a normal life. Yet, he had no money for school fees, no house to offer, and no connections to help. Still, he promised himself that he would find a way, no matter how difficult, one day. A customer, a kind woman who owned a small cafe nearby, noticed the man and the boy. She approached him carefully and asked about the child. The man explained softly, without revealing too much, how the boy had no home and how he had been feeding him every day. The woman's eyes filled with tears. She offered temporary help, a place for the boy to stay during the day, warm meals, and some tutoring. The man hesitated at first, proud and protective, but eventually agreed. He realized that sometimes love and care had to extend beyond what one could provide alone. The boy's life slowly began to change. He still came to the cart every morning, but now he had a warm place to rest during the day, and people who were willing to help him learn and grow. The man watched him, heart swelling with pride and relief. He understood that his simple act of kindness had sparked a transformation, not just in the boy's life, but in his own. And yet he did not know that this was only the beginning. Life had a way of surprising those who gave without expecting anything in return. Something extraordinary was about to arrive at the corner of his food cart, something that would change both their lives forever. But for now, as the sun rose higher and the city came alive, the man and the boy shared a quiet, unspoken happiness. They had each other, and for the first time in many years, that was enough. The mornings continued with their quiet rhythm. The man would push his food cart to the same corner, and the boy would appear, now smiling more often. He was no longer afraid of the world around him. People in the neighborhood had begun to notice the strange, heartwarming routine, the man who served food, and the boy who ate beside him every day. There was a calm in their little corner that seemed to ripple outward, though most passers-by paid little attention. Beyond a polite nod or a curious glance, the boy had grown stronger over the past few weeks. The woman who ran the small cafe nearby had helped him in ways the man could not. She had given him warm clothes, a small bed and a safe room, and even started teaching him to read and write. Each day, he would go to the cafe for a few hours, turning to the food cart just in time to help the man clean up and prepare for the next day. Though he was still small and thin, there was a spark in his eyes that had never been there before. A spark of hope. The man noticed the change. He remembered the first time he had seen the boy, shivering in the cold, silent and cautious. Now, the boy laughed at small jokes, hummed quietly as he helped sweep the area, and even spoke more, asking questions about cooking, about the city, and about life. The man answered patiently, sometimes teaching him small tricks for the food cart, sometimes just listening to the boy's questions. He realized that these small interactions were slowly building confidence and trust in the child, something he had not imagined possible. One chilly morning, as the man prepared a stack of flatbreads, he noticed a black car slowly stopping near the corner. It was unusual. Most of the early customers came on foot or in small vehicles. The car's engine hummed softly, and two well-dressed men stepped out, glancing at the food cart with curiosity. The boy noticed them too, instinctively shrinking back behind the cart. The man greeted them cautiously. "Good morning. Can I help you?" The taller man smiled politely. "We hope so. We heard about a child who comes here every morning. Is that true?" The man nodded slowly. "Yes. He comes here for food. I don't know much else." The men exchanged a glance. "We would like to talk to the boy," the shorter man said gently. "It's important." The man hesitated. He did not know who these people were or what they wanted, but he could sense no immediate danger. Still, he crouched down near the boy and whispered, "These people want to talk to you. You don't have to if you don't want to." The boy shook his head slightly, curiosity winning over caution. Slowly, he stepped forward, holding the man's hand for support. The taller man knelt down to the boy's level. "Hello," he said softly. "We have something very important to tell you, something that could change your life." The boy tilted his head, confused. The man watched silently, unsure whether to step in or let the conversation continue. "It is about your family," the taller man continued. "You have someone looking for you, someone who has been trying to find you for many years." The boy's eyes widened. He had never known his parents, had no memory of anyone caring for him beyond himself. He glanced at the man, seeking reassurance, and the man nodded encouragingly. "It's okay, listen. You don't have to decide anything right now." The shorter man reached into his coat and pulled out a small photograph. It was old and slightly faded, but the boy recognized something immediately: his own eyes, though younger, staring back at him. The photograph showed a woman holding a baby and a man standing beside them, both smiling warmly. The boy's hands trembled as he took the photo. He felt a strange mixture of fear, hope, and disbelief. "Is this my family?" the boy whispered. The men nodded. "Yes. They have been looking for you for a long time. Circumstances kept you apart, but now they have finally found a way to reach you." The boy's mind raced. He thought of the streets, the abandoned buildings, the loneliness he had endured. He thought of the man who had fed him, cared for him, and given him a sense of belonging he had never known before. Could he leave all that behind? Could he trust strangers who claimed to be family after so many years of isolation? The man placed a hand gently on the boy's shoulder. "Whatever you decide, you don't have to rush. Just take a deep breath and think about what feels right." The boy nodded, still holding the photograph. He felt a lump in his throat, a mixture of fear and longing. He had always dreamed of a family, a home, someone to care for him, but he had never believed it could happen. And now it was happening all at once. The men spoke softly, explaining that the boy's parents had lost contact due to circumstances beyond their control, that they had never stopped searching, and that now, with the help of records and contacts, they had finally located him. They promised safety, care, and love. Everything the boy had ever wanted, everything he had imagined in his quiet moments of longing, was now within reach. The boy looked at the man beside him, his eyes full of questions. I don't want to leave you," he whispered. "You've been my family here." The man knelt down, holding the boy's hands firmly but gently. "You are part of my life, yes," he said softly, "and you always will be. But this is your chance to find your real family, to have a home, and people who can care for you in ways I never could. I will support you no matter what you choose." The boy's heart pounded. He wanted to stay in the safety of the corner with the man who had been his guardian for weeks, who had fed him, laughed with him, and protected him from the cold world outside. But he also wanted to know his parents, to feel the warmth of a family that had been searching for him for so long. He took a deep breath, wiping his eyes. I think I want to meet them, he said finally. The men smiled gently. That is very brave. We will take good care of you. The man placed a hand on the boy's shoulder one last time. Go with them. Learn who you are, where you came from. And remember, I will always be here if you need me. Now tears ran down the boy's cheeks as he nodded. He looked around the corner one last time, at the food cart, at the small pile of drawings he had made over the past weeks, at the quiet streets that had been his home. Then, holding the men's hands, he stepped toward the black car, feeling a mix of fear and hope with every step. The man watched silently, fighting his own emotions. He had grown attached to the boy, had found joy in their small, shared world, and yet he knew that this moment was inevitable. Sometimes, caring meant letting go, even when it hurt. The city seemed to hold its breath as the boy disappeared into the car. The streets were quiet again, the food cart standing lonely in its usual corner. But the man felt a strange warmth in his chest. He knew he had played a small part in this miracle. He had given kindness, and that kindness had prepared the boy for a life beyond the streets. Days passed. The man continued to push his food cart, serving breakfast to workers and students, greeting customers with the same polite smile. Yet, there was an emptiness he could not ignore. The corner felt different without the boy. But he carried on, reminding himself that the boy was safe, that he was finally part of a family, and that he had a future full of possibilities. Then, one morning, something unusual happened. A crowd had gathered near the corner. People were pointing, whispering, and taking photos. The man approached cautiously, wondering what had caused the commotion. And then he saw a line of luxurious black cars, dozens of them, stretching down the street. Men in suits were stepping out, talking to each other, carrying packages and briefcases. He frowned, unsure what was happening. Then he noticed movement near the cars. A small figure appeared, running toward the food cart with a wide, joyful smile. It was the boy. He was dressed in clean, warm clothes, holding a small tray of food and offering it to the man. The man blinked, unable to comprehend. "How?" he whispered. The boy ran forward. "I wanted to come back," he said, voice full of excitement. "I wanted to thank you. Everything you did for me, I can never forget it. Look, I brought some of the food we cooked at home. I wanted to share it with you." The man felt tears sting his eyes. The boy had returned, not out of obligation, but out of love and gratitude. And behind him, the black cars waited patiently, as if respecting the small moment of reunion between two souls who had changed each other's lives forever. The man took the tray, hands shaking slightly. You didn't have to do this," he said softly. The boy shook his head, smiling. "I wanted to. You saved me when no one else would. I will never forget that." And in that moment, standing beside his food cart, the man realized something he had never expected. Acts of kindness, no matter how small, could ripple outward in ways beyond imagination. The boy had found his family, but he had also returned a gift far greater than any money or recognition, the gift of connection, love, and hope. After the surprising morning when the boy returned with the tray of food, the man felt a mixture of pride and disbelief. Life had a strange way of rewarding kindness, he thought, as he looked down at the carefully arranged tray. The boy had gone from a timid, hungry child to someone who radiated confidence and joy. There was a light in his eyes that the man had never seen before, light that reflected hope, gratitude, and an understanding of how far he had come. The boy insisted on helping the man serve breakfast that morning. Though he had now been welcomed into his real family, wanted to spend time with the man who had cared for him when no one else would. People passing by stopped to stare. Some whispered in astonishment. They had heard about the boy in the food cart, but seeing him return so happily, offering food back to the man who had fed him for weeks, was something they had never expected. The man smiled, feeling warmth in his heart. He had never thought he would be the kind of person who could impact another life so deeply, and yet here he was, watching the boy stand tall and generous, giving back what he had once received. It was a quiet, simple happiness, but it was profound. After the morning rush, the man and the boy sat together beside the cart, sharing a quiet meal. The boy spoke eagerly about his family, about the warm home he now had, the small garden in the backyard, and the new friends he was making. He described the rooms filled with laughter, the evenings spent reading stories, and the cozy bed where he could sleep without fear. The man listened silently, a small smile on his face. He was happy for the boy, and yet a small part of him mourned the end of their daily routine. "I never thought life could be like this," the boy said softly. "I used to think I would stay on the streets forever. I thought nobody cared." "You're stronger than you know," the man said. "You made it this far because you never gave up. And now you have the chance to grow even more." The boy nodded, looking down at his hands. "I wanted to come back today because I wanted to thank you. You believed in me when nobody else did. You gave me hope." The man felt his eyes water. "That's all I ever wanted to help. Seeing you happy now. It's more than I could have asked for." Days passed, and the boy began visiting more frequently. Each time, he brought stories of his new life, small gifts from his family, sometimes treats from the cafe that had helped him in the beginning. He spoke of new lessons, new friends, and the excitement of being able to go to school properly, learning things he had never had the chance to learn before. The man noticed subtle changes in himself, too. His food cart became more popular, not just because of the meals he served, but because of the story that had spread about the boy and the man who had cared for him. People wanted to meet the boy who had overcome so much, and they wanted to support the man who had shown such kindness. Donations of food and small tips began to appear on the cart, left by those who had heard the story. Some were curious, some were grateful, some simply wanted to be part of something good in the world. Despite the new attention, the man remained humble. He never asked for help, never sought praise. He continued to push his cart each morning, preparing meals as he always had, quietly proud of the boy who had returned to him for no reason other than gratitude and affection. One afternoon, as the sun cast long shadows across the cobblestones, the boy arrived with a letter in his hand. His eyes shone with excitement and a hint of nervousness. "I got this from my family," he said, handing the letter to the man. "They want me to invite you to our home. They said you've been like a guardian to me, and they want to thank you properly." The man took the letter, feeling a lump in his throat. The invitation was unexpected. He had never been inside a wealthy home, had never experienced the kind of life the boy now had access to. He hesitated. I don't know if I should go. I'm just a food vendor." The boy smiled warmly. "That's exactly why they want you there. You gave me something money could never buy. They want you to see what you've made possible." After some thought, the man agreed. They set a day for the visit. The boy was practically bouncing with excitement. The man found himself smiling, feeling a mixture of anticipation and nervousness. The day arrived. The boy ran ahead, opening the grand gate of a modest but beautiful house set behind a small garden. Flowers bloomed in neat rows, and a small fountain bubbled softly in the center of the courtyard. The man paused at the gate, feeling the weight of the moment. He had lived a simple life, surviving each day. But this was a world he had never imagined stepping into. The boy's parents greeted him warmly. They were kind and humble despite the comfortable surroundings. The father extended a hand, the mother smiled softly, and they both expressed their gratitude repeatedly. The man felt a wave of emotion. He had expected gratitude, yes, but not the warmth and sincerity that filled the room. "Please, make yourself at home," the mother said. "You've done so much for him. We owe you more than we can ever say." The man shook his head. "I only did what I felt was right. He needed help, and I gave what I could." The boy beamed, and it made all the difference. The visit continued with laughter, stories, and shared meals. The man observed the life the boy had now, the love and care surrounding him. He felt a quiet satisfaction. His simple acts of kindness had created a bridge between the boy and the family he had always wanted but never known. And yet, he also realized something more he had been given a gift to. The chance to witness transformation, to be part of a miracle, and to see the boy thrive, was something that no amount of money could buy. After the visit, the man returned to his food cart. The streets were quieter now, but he felt no emptiness. The boy would continue to visit, and the bond they had formed was unbreakable. People stopped to ask about the boy, and he would simply smile and nod, quietly proud of the life he had helped shape. Weeks turned into months. The boy's visits became regular. He would often bring friends from school, sharing small meals, telling stories, helping the man serve the morning crowd. His confidence grew, and he became a kind of bridge between the neighborhood and the small world of the food cart. The man noticed that the boy's presence brought joy not only to him, but to everyone around. People smiled more, spoke more kindly, and sometimes even shared a meal with strangers who had never met them before. One morning, the boy arrived with an unusual idea. "I want to help you make your cart bigger," he said. "We can get more ingredients, cook more meals, and help more children. There are so many like me who need food and care." The man was taken aback. I don't know if that's possible. I barely manage what I have now." The boy shook his head determinedly. "We can try. I have people who want to help. You taught me that small actions can create big changes. Let's do it together." Inspired by the boy's enthusiasm, the man agreed. Over the next few weeks, they worked together to expand the cart's operations. Donations from neighbors, friends from the cafe, and even strangers who had heard the story began to pour in. The small food cart became a place of hope and community. Children from the streets came every morning. Workers from nearby shops stopped by to contribute, and the neighborhood slowly transformed into a place where kindness was contagious. The man watched all this quietly, feeling an overwhelming sense of fulfillment. He had begun the journey with nothing but a small food cart and a desire to help a single child. Now, months later, that single act had blossomed into something greater than he had ever imagined, a network of support, care, and compassion that reached far beyond his corner of the city. The boy, too, had grown in ways no one could have predicted. He was confident, cheerful, and filled with purpose. He often spoke about his dreams helping other children, learning new skills, and making sure no child went hungry like he once had. The man listened, encouraging him at every turn, proud of the young person he was becoming. And though the boy's life had changed forever, he never forgot the man who had fed him when he had nothing. Each day, he returned to the cart, bringing food, laughter, and a reminder that gratitude and kindness are not measured by wealth or status, but by the heart, in that quiet corner of the city. Amid the smells of frying bread and the chatter of customers, something extraordinary had taken root. A simple act of feeding a hungry child had created ripples of hope, love, and transformation. And both the man and the boy had discovered the truth that the smallest acts of kindness could change lives in ways no one could predict. And that love, in any form, was the greatest gift of all. The city had grown warmer as spring arrived. The streets, once cold and quiet, were filled with the chatter of children playing, the laughter of neighbors, and the hum of life returning after long gray months. The little corner where the man's food cart stood had become a hub of activity. Children who had once wandered hungry now came each morning with clean faces and bright eyes. Workers stopped on their way to jobs, offering coins, vegetables, or bread. And small acts of kindness became a rhythm everyone in the neighborhood recognized. The boy, now more confident than ever, had taken on a role he had never imagined for himself. He was no longer just a child in need. He had become a helper, a leader, and a source of joy for others. Each morning he arrived early, helping the man prepare the food, sweeping the corners, arranging the small tables, and making sure everyone who came felt welcome. The man watched with quiet pride, remembering the first day the boy had stood timidly at the edge of the street, unsure of the world around him. One morning, as the boy was arranging the plates, a young girl approached the cart. She was no older than 7, wearing worn clothes and carrying a small basket. Her eyes were cautious, scanning the area as if she had been taught to trust no one. The boy knelt down, smiling softly. "Hello?" he said gently. "Do you want some breakfast?" The girl hesitated. I don't have any money," she whispered. The boy shook his head. "That's okay. Come, sit here." The man looked up, surprised. "Another child?" he asked quietly. The boy nodded. She's like I was, hungry and alone. We should help her. The man felt a warmth in his chest. This was exactly why he had continued pushing the cart each day. The small acts of kindness he had started had begun to spread. The boy, who had once been a recipient of care, was now passing it on. The girl sat down hesitantly, taking the food the boy offered. She ate slowly, glancing up occasionally at the man. There was a fragile hope in her eyes, the same hope the boy had once carried when he first arrived at the cart. The man watched quietly, realizing that the cycle of giving and caring was continuing, reaching new hearts and new lives. Days turned into weeks, and the girl began to appear regularly. She became part of the morning routine, helping sweep, carry plates, and even chat with the other children. The boy took her under his wing, teaching her the small lessons he had learned from the man: how to cook, how to serve with a smile, how to offer kindness without expecting anything in return. Meanwhile, the man noticed changes in himself as well. He had always been quiet and reserved, focused solely on survival and the small rhythms of the food cart. But now, he found himself thinking more about the community around him. The children who wandered the streets and the possibilities that kindness could create. His life, once simple and lonely, had expanded into something vibrant and full of purpose. One afternoon, as the boy and the girl were arranging freshly baked bread on the tables, a man in a suit approached the cart. He looked out of place among the cobblestones and colorful crates, but there was a kind expression on his face. "Excuse me," he said politely. "I've been hearing about this corner, this little food cart. They say a child was helped here and returned to his family. Is that true?" The man nodded slowly. "Yes, that boy is here every morning. He helps with the cart now." The man in the suit smiled. "I represent a foundation that supports children in need. We heard your story and the boy's story, and we would like to help. We can provide supplies, education, and support for other children who need food and care." The boy's eyes lit up. "Really? We could help even more children?" The man nodded. "Yes, we want to work with you." The man behind the cart felt a lump in his throat. What had begun as a simple effort to feed one hungry child had grown into something that could reach hundreds. He realized that he had been part of something much larger than himself, a movement of care and compassion that could transform lives. Over the next few months, the cart grew. Supplies arrived regularly, new volunteers joined, and the man began organizing small morning classes for the children. They taught reading, writing, basic hygiene, and most importantly, the value of kindness. Children who had once wandered alone now had a safe place to gather, eat, and learn. Parents who could not afford school or meals were grateful, and neighbors began contributing in small ways, creating a network of support that extended far beyond the corner. The boy thrived in this environment. He was no longer just a child learning to survive. He was a leader, a guide, and a symbol of hope for others. The men watched him, amazed at how much he had grown in such a short time. He remembered the first mornings, the boy hiding in the shadows, unsure of whether he could trust anyone. Now, the boy moved with confidence, helping others, speaking to adults with respect, and showing the same generosity he had once received. One day a journalist came by, curious about the story. She asked the boy to explain what had happened, how he had come to live with his family, and why he returned to the cart each morning. The boy spoke honestly, telling the story of the man who had fed him when no one else would, the woman who had offered a safe place, and the love he had received from his parents. The journalist was moved. She took photos, wrote the story, and soon it appeared in local newspapers and online platforms. People were touched by the simple yet powerful tale of kindness, courage, and gratitude. Donations and offers of help poured in from all corners of the city. Families reached out, wanting to volunteer or sponsor meals. Businesses offered ingredients, and neighbors provided toys, books, and supplies. The man who had once thought his small corner and simple food cart were insignificant saw the ripple effect of his actions. He realized that one act of care, repeated consistently, could inspire a wave of change far beyond what he had imagined. The boy, too, saw the impact of his actions. He understood that helping the girl and other children was not just a duty, but a responsibility and a joy. He felt proud to be part of a community where care and kindness were valued, where children no longer had to survive alone, and where people were willing to come together to make a difference. One spring morning, as the sun rose gently over the rooftops, the boy and the man prepared a special breakfast for all the children who had become regulars. There were fresh pancakes, warm milk, fruit, and bread with honey. The children laughed, shared stories, and played games, their faces glowing with happiness. The man felt a warmth in his chest, a quiet satisfaction that came from seeing the fruits of his labor as the day went on. The boy noticed a small, timid child standing at the edge of the street, clutching a worn blanket. The boy's heart went out to him. He remembered the fear, the hunger, and the loneliness he had once felt. He ran over, offering the child a plate of food and a warm smile. "Come sit with us," he said gently. "You're safe here." The child hesitated, but eventually stepped forward, encouraged by the kindness in the boy's eyes. The man watched quietly, a tear rolling down his cheek. The cycle of care was continuing. One child's life had been changed, and now that child was helping others, creating a chain of love and support that could never be broken. Weeks turned into months, and the small corner of the city became a place of warmth, hope, and growth. The man continued to run his food cart, now with the help of the boy, the girl, volunteers, and neighbors. The children learned, played, and grew in an environment filled with care and kindness. Parents began to notice changes in their own children, and the neighborhood slowly transformed into a place where support and compassion were the norm rather than the exception. Through it all, the boy never forgot the man who had first fed him, who had shown him trust and care when the world had seemed cold and uncaring. And the man never forgot the boy, whose courage, gratitude, and love had inspired him to believe in the power of small actions. In that quiet corner, amid the smells of cooking, the laughter of children, and the gentle hum of life returning to the streets, something extraordinary had grown. What had begun as a single act of feeding a hungry child had blossomed into a movement of hope, love, and community. And both the man and the boy understood the truth that kindness, once given, could multiply in ways beyond imagination, changing lives, hearts, and the world itself. The boy looked up at the man one afternoon, a wide smile on his face. "We've done so much, haven't we?" The man nodded, his eyes misty. "Yes, and we've only just begun. There are still many children who need help, many lives that can be changed. But together, we will keep going." And with that, they continued their work, side by side, feeding the hungry, teaching the children, and spreading a simple truth, that love, care, kindness could light up even the darkest corners of the world, one small act at a time. The city had grown lively as summer approached. The streets were filled with the sounds of life, children laughing, bicycles ringing bells, vendors calling out their wares, and neighbors greeting each other with warmth. The little corner where the food cart had stood for so long had become more than a simple place to eat. It had grown into a hub of hope, kindness, and community. The boy had grown taller and stronger, his confidence evident in the way he moved and spoke. His hair was neat, his clothes clean, and his smile brighter than the morning sun. He had become a symbol of resilience in the neighborhood, an example of what love, care, and guidance could do for someone who had once been lost. The man, too, had changed. He was no longer just a quiet food vendor who lived day to day. He had become a mentor, a guardian, and a respected figure in the community. People came to him for advice, to volunteer, or simply to share a story. And while he never sought recognition or reward, the satisfaction of seeing lives change because of his small acts of kindness filled his heart in ways he could never have imagined. One morning, as the man prepared the food cart for the day, the boy arrived with a letter in his hand. His eyes shone with excitement. He practically ran to the man. "They invited me to speak at a gathering," he said breathlessly. "It's for children who need help and for people who can make a difference. They want me to tell our story." The man blinked, surprised. "Our story, you mean? About the cart and how we started?" The boy nodded eagerly. "Yes. They want to show other children and adults how small acts of kindness can create big changes. They said I could inspire others by telling what you did for me. The man felt a lump in his throat. He had never imagined that their small corner of the city could have such an impact. I'm proud of you, he said softly. You've come so far, and now you can help others too. The boy grinned. I want to make sure everyone knows that kindness matters, that helping someone even in a small walk can change their life forever. The gathering was held in a large community hall filled with children, parents, volunteers, and social workers. The boy stood nervously at the podium, glancing at the man in the audience. His hands shook slightly as he held the microphone, but the sight of the man's encouraging smile gave him courage. He began to speak, told the story of the first day he had arrived at the food cart, hungry and alone, unsure if anyone would care for him. He spoke about the man who had fed him without question, the woman who had given him a safe place to rest and learn, and the love of his family that he had discovered later. He described how these acts of kindness had given him hope, taught him confidence, and inspired him to help others. The audience listened in silence, many wiping tears from their eyes. Children nodded, understanding that even small acts could make a difference. And adults whispered to each other about the importance of compassion in community. When the boy finished, there was a long moment of silence before the hall erupted in applause. The man felt tears welling in his eyes. He had never sought recognition, but hearing the boy speak, seeing the impact of their story, he realized that the smallest actions could ripple outward in ways beyond imagination. The boy had grown from a hungry child into a young leader, inspiring an entire community. After the gathering, the boy returned to the corner where the food cart still stood. The streets had become quieter as the day wore on, but the energy in the air was still warm. The boy set down the basket of food he had brought from home, smiling at the man. People were so inspired, he said. They want to help feed more children, teach more lessons, and make sure no child goes hungry. It's all because you gave me a chance. The man shook his head, humility in his eyes. It wasn't just me. It was you too. You accepted help, learned, and chose to give back. That's what makes the difference. Over the next few weeks, the cart became even busier. Donations of food and supplies continued to pour in. Volunteers arrived daily to help cook, clean, and teach the children who came by. The boy had become the leader of this small operation, organizing tasks, teaching lessons, and ensuring that every child felt welcome. The man remained beside him, quietly guiding and supporting. Proud of the young person he had helped nurture one afternoon, a small group of children arrived with a worn, trembling child clinging to a tattered doll. The boy immediately knelt down, smiling gently, and offered a plate of food. The child hesitated but eventually took a bite, eyes wide with surprise at the warmth and care around him. The man watched silently, realizing how far the neighborhood had come. The little corner where they had started, just a cart, a hungry boy, and a man willing to care, had become a beacon of hope. Children who had once wandered alone were now learning, laughing, and growing in a safe environment. Families were helping one another, volunteers were arriving daily, and the ripple effect of kindness had touched countless lives. One evening, as the sun dipped below the rooftops, the boy and the man sat on the edge of the street. Enjoying a quiet moment after the day's work, the boy leaned back, smiling at the sky. "Do you ever think about the first day I came here?" he asked. The man nodded slowly. "Do. I remember your eyes, the way you watched me, unsure if you could trust anyone. And now look at you. You've grown so much, and you've changed more lives than I could have imagined." The boy looked at him, eyes shining. "It's all because you believed in me. You fed me when no one else would, gave me hope, and showed me that kindness matters. I'll never forget it." The man smiled softly. "And I'll never forget you. You reminded me that even the smallest acts can create something extraordinary." The boy nodded, a determined expression on his face. "We should keep going. There are still many children out there who need help. We can't stop now." The man felt a deep sense of fulfillment. He had begun his journey with a single act, feeding a hungry child. That act had grown into something far beyond what he had ever imagined. Together, They had created a community of care, hope, and love. And now, with the boy leading the way, there was no limit to what they could achieve. As the months passed, the cart continued to serve hundreds of children each week. The boy's family remained a supportive presence, visiting regularly, helping organize resources, and encouraging the boy in his work. Volunteers came from all corners of the city, inspired by the story of the boy and the man. Neighborhoods once filled with fear and neglect were slowly transforming into places where care, kindness, and hope thrived. One morning, the boy approached the man with a thoughtful expression. "I was thinking," he said softly, "what if we created a small school? A place where children can learn, eat, and feel safe every day? We can teach reading, writing, hygiene, and kindness too." The man nodded slowly, a smile forming. "That's a wonderful idea. We can start small, just a few children at first, and grow as we can. You've inspired so many already. This could be the next step." With determination, they began the project. They gathered resources, volunteers, and materials. The boy taught alongside the man, helping children who had never had the chance to learn. While the man continued to prepare meals and organize the daily routines, slowly, the small school took shape, a modest building, brightly painted, filled with laughter, learning, and hope. The first day of classes was quiet but joyful. Children arrived hesitantly, unsure of what to expect, but they were welcomed warmly. The boy led them to their seats, helped them open their notebooks, and shared stories of kindness, courage, and hope. The man served breakfast and lunch, ensuring that no child went hungry. Parents watched from the sidelines, grateful. Many moved to tears by the generosity and dedication they witnessed. The school grew gradually, just as the food cart had. Each day brought new children, new volunteers, and new opportunities to make a difference. The boy and the man became mentors, guides, and role models, teaching that care and compassion were as important as any lesson in reading or writing. Years passed, and the boy became a young man, respected and admired in the community. He had grown tall, confident, and wise beyond his years. He had experienced hardship, hunger, and fear, but he had also learned love, kindness, and the power of giving back. The man, older now, but still strong, continued to guide him. He was proud of the person he had become. Together, they had built something extraordinary from a simple act of kindness. A corner of the city that had once been quiet and lonely had become a beacon of hope. Children had learned, laughed, and grown. Families had been reunited. Lives had been transformed. And a community had discovered the power of caring for one another. One summer evening, as the sun set in a brilliant array of colors across the city, the boy turned to the man. "We've come so far," he said softly. "Do you ever think about how it all started?" The man smiled, his eyes misty.
"I do."
"I remember the first morning when you stood at the edge of the street, hungry and unsure. I never imagined that day would lead to this, but I'm grateful. You taught me as much as I taught you. Kindness, hope, and love, these are the real lessons." The boy nodded, a serene smile on his face. "And we'll keep teaching them every day to every child who needs it. That's how we make the world better, one small act at a time." The man looked at the boy, now a young man, and felt a profound sense of fulfillment. He had begun with a simple desire to help one hungry child. That small act had grown into a lifetime of purpose, love, and hope. And he knew that the boy, carrying the lessons of kindness and courage, would continue to touch lives far beyond what he could imagine. As they watched the sun dip below the horizon, the streets alive with laughter and life, the man and the boy knew one truth: love, care, and small acts of kindness had the power to change the world. And sometimes, all it takes is a single heart willing to give, a single hand willing to help, and a single soul willing to believe in the impossible, in the quiet corners, in the bustling streets, and in the hearts of those they had touched. Their story would live Anna's story of hunger transformed into hope, loneliness transformed into love, and fear transformed into a future filled with possibility. And so, the boy and the man continued their work. side by side, feeding, teaching, and inspiring, knowing that their journey had just begun. Because when kindness leads the way, every small act can grow into something extraordinary, changing lives for generations to come.